The film that we're reviewing tonight is Meet Joe Black, starring Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins, and we're going to kind of a deep dive and review and talk about the film. And of course, my main man Julio is here.
How's it going, Derek?
You know, same old, same old.
Mm-hmm.
So, Meet Joe Black. we're gonna talk about it. I'll give some points as far as the plot points and stuff like that, and then we can kind of get into it a little bit.
All right. So if you want, Derek, I can give a quick synopsis.
Okay.
Like. All right. Sure. So Meet Joe Black is a remake or a reimagining of a 1930s movie called Death Takes a Holiday, which was about half the length. The premise is there's an old guy played by Anthony Hopkins named Bill, and it's his time to die. But Death, played by Brad Pitt, wants to experience life on Earth to see what it's like. So he makes a deal with Anthony Hopkins' character saying, look, I'll let you live for a little bit if you show me the ropes on how the real world works. Would that be accurate, Derek? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
The Anthony Hopkins character, Bill, again, he's a communications magnate. Seems like he owns newspapers, magazines. I don't think they ever made that clear, but
the communications company, basically. Yeah.
But he's super rich, like, lives in a mansion, anything you'd ever want. He's clearly a very, very powerful man. So the movie basically is him trying to navigate the extra life that he has, knowing it's going to end soon, and dealing with this Joe Black character who is Death and keeping him on his arm, showing him the ropes and everything. Now, the one trick is he can't tell anybody that Brad Pitt / Joe Black is Death. That's kind of the main.
That's kind of the main top. Yeah, it's kind of the main gist of the movie. That's correct.
So Anthony Hopkins' character, who was originally supposed to be Gene Hackman, by the way, a little trivia there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
His character has two daughters. One, an absolute see you next Tuesday, played by Marcia Gay Harden, I think. Just annoying. And then another very younger, pretty girl named Susan. Susan falls in love with Brad Pitt. Who wouldn't? And hilarity ensues. That's where the movie goes. It's about his daughter, Susan, trying to navigate being in love with this kind of like a mysterious guy who can't tell her who he is. About her father talking to Death, saying, don't mess with my family. And kind of that triangle. Plus, in the background, there's a business situation where his younger daughter's current boyfriend is trying to take his business away and get control of his business. So there's lots of plot points here, lots of navigation for the characters to make.
And she meets Brad Pitt at the beginning of the movie, but he's a different person. Death actually takes Brad Pitt's body. So Susan thinks that, at first she thinks it's the guy that she met at the cafe, and then she realizes it's not.
Right.
It looks like him, but it's not the same person.
Right. Susan meets Brad Pitt's character at a cafe, and kind of they're flirty. They kind of fall not in love at that point, but they're clearly attracted to each other.
Yes.
And then Brad Pitt rolls out of the cafe and gets smashed by a car.
And it was
pretty graphic.
Something like he was.
Next thing you know,
ass over apple cart.
Yeah. So next thing you know, basically, the daughter Susan, who was the woman at the cafe, Anthony Hopkins' daughter, they're having dinner at their home, and this guy Brad Pitt, who just got hit by a car, shows up unexpectedly because Death took his body, and Death makes a deal with Anthony Hopkins. Like I'd mentioned before, basically, look, give me a few days, show me the ropes on Earth. I'll give you a few extra days of your life.
Yeah, he wants to basically live like a human.
Right.
And have human emotions, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about Bill, and at the beginning, he starts doing some deep thinking, and then he starts hearing these voices, and then all of a sudden he has this heart attack when the voices are talking to him at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Anthony Hopkins is a well-trained actor. I thought that the part was kind of beneath him.
I agree.
I don't know if it was he took it for the money, or they just convinced him, hey, Brad Pitt, other people that are involved in this film is also in this film. But I thought the film, for the most part, was beneath Anthony Hopkins.
You know what, Derek? I agree with you. It was a big budget B-ish
Rom-com.
movie. I have so many thoughts on what category to put this in, and in the end, I decided it's a chick flick, which I will get into.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a love story chick flick.
But I agree with you talking about Anthony Hopkins. I watched Anthony Hopkins play Othello in a BBC production of the play. That dude can act. Hannibal Lecter. Dude, he's killer.
Exactly. Didn't he win an Oscar for that?
Oh, he's amazing. He's an amazing. Isn't he a sir? Did he get knighted or some shit?
Yeah, he's knighted. Yeah. He
the dialogue
kind of beneath him. So I don't know if it was just he was at a point where he just was saying yes to everything, or if he did it for the money. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was a big budget film. It cost $90 million, so it wasn't just like an indie film. But yeah, when I was watching him act, I was like, oh, God bless you. You're trying. And he did try, but some of the dialogue was just.
He was by far the best actor in the movie.
Okay. Later on we'll get to that, and I do have another.
Oh, I've got some good things to say about some of the acting and some of the not so good things.
Me too.
Okay, so just going back to the thing. So Brad Pitt's character, when she meets at the beginning, gets hit by a car. Anthony Hopkins has this heart attack. He's listening to voices. Death comes to him and basically just comes out of these curtains and says he wants to have an experience as a human and what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little awkward where Death is just like, well, you can't say anything, but I don't know anything at the same time. So when Brad Pitt's character is sitting at the dinner table, doesn't know how to use silverware, doesn't know how to talk to people, that was the strangest fucking scene I've ever saw in my life.
The first 30 minutes.
He might as well be mute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the first 30 minutes of the film was super awkward. Because Brad Pitt as Death is sitting at a dinner table with Anthony Hopkins' family. Clearly, there's something off with him. I would have thought he was retarded. I'm like, oh, Dad took in a retard. That's nice of him. Because that's how he was playing it, Derek. He was like, oh, silverware? What's this? How do I do?
What's silverware?
I thought the people around the table that were at the dinner with Death they didn't react strongly enough. I'd be like, who the hell's this guy? Like, nobody really.
It was like, well, Dad brings home strays all the time, so we'll just accept them. You know, it was like that type of thing. It was like, what?
The other thing I noticed in the first part of the movie is there's a scene where, so Brad Pitt, Death, I don't know. Do you want me to call him Death, Brad? I'll just call him Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's fine.
Brad Pitt is now going to live at Anthony Hopkins' house, right? So he goes to bed and he's hopping up and down on the cushion like he's never figured it out before. And then he starts to take a walk around the house to kind of explore. And this is where I'm like, okay, what kind of movie is this? So they had the soundtrack put in this little comedy music behind him.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, it's going to be a comedy. It seemed out of place.
Yeah.
I think the music was wrong in that spot, and it added to the overall awkwardness of the first act of the film. And I DM'd you, Derek. I'm like, I hate you for making me watch this. I'm 45 minutes in. And
I didn't see
that. Yeah. Because it was just bad. The daughter played by Marcia Gay Harding, who's the oldest daughter named Allison, was insufferable.
Yeah, she was annoying as hell.
In the first, actually throughout the whole movie, she was pretty annoying.
And the girl that played the other daughter is so hot. Oh my God. She's so pretty.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I was watching her most of the time, like, oh, hey, what's up?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yep. Beautiful. Okay, so the second part of the movie kind of takes a little detour because what you had said about the brother-in-law basically is trying to take over the company. So he gets information from Brad Pitt's character because Brad Pitt is sort of there being Death following the guy that's going to die. But he's also acting as like an advisor, and they're treating him as like an advisor.
Right.
So this brother-in-law character or son-in-law character starts being resentful toward Brad Pitt, who's not part of the family, who's just a consultant or acting like a consultant.
As he should. As he should. They were at the dinner, right, Derek?
Yeah.
And the young daughter, who was clearly smitten with Brad Pitt, because
Yeah.
she thought they had already met at the cafe, not knowing that this is Death and not Brad Pitt, was acting all familiar with him. And her boyfriend's like, what the hell's going on? So
Strange person. Yeah.
I don't blame him. And I think the character of the young girl's boyfriend got a short shrift in the movie, to be honest with you. I was on his side most of the time. His name was Drew.
Yeah.
The character in the movie.
But he was like a used car salesman type person. So he was kind of shady, but
until the end. Well, up until about halfway through the movie, I thought he was on point. I felt bad for him.
Yeah. So the second act of the movie is basically Joe Black getting more comfortable with being with Bill. The son-in-law is being jealous and trying to push Brad Pitt aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think what other things happened during the second half. They're being more lovey-dovey toward each other, Death and Claire, the Susan. And she's falling for Brad Pitt's character more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And then Anthony Hopkins' character is like, I wish, Susan, that you would pick somebody that that is good to you. And she's basically, well, Joe is good to me. And he's like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this relationship is not going to last. So he was trying to tell her without trying to tell her that, look, once I'm gone, he's gone. I mean, it's basically what it boils down to. Mm-hmm. And she started to resent her father for trying to, get into her business, basically, because she was smitten over Brad Pitt's character, Joe Black.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Who can blame her? I just spent 3 hours of watching Brad Pitt stare at me dreamily, and I'm now questioning some of who I am.
Okay, a couple of the cringe moments. Okay, the one that was cringe to me. It ended well, but it was cringe at the beginning. Is when Brad Pitt went to the hospital for the first time, and the girl that was being wheelchaired in. The daughter is the worst actor of all fucking time. The black girl, where she's like, we were here before you, and it was bad. I was just like, where did they get this lady off the fucking street to tell her push this?
I wrote that down. I said, oof. I literally wrote oof to black daughter.
Bad. How can you have titans or larger than life actors that are playing these roles, and you have a black girl that is not good? And that was before the wokey woke stuff. I don't know if that was somebody's daughter or if they called in a favor, but it was bad.
It was actually to add on to your point about this was before the wokey woke stuff. There's white people as far as the eye can see in this movie. It was like, it looked like a Viking get together. There was nobody white people except for the scene you're talking about where the young black lady brings her elderly black mother into the hospital because she's.
And I thought the black mother actually played a pretty good character.
That was the actor I was going to point out. I thought she elevated every scene. She was really good.
She was. Yeah, the daughter was terrible, but the elderly black lady that was ready to die played a good role.
She was great. I like this. The scenes with her and Brad Pitt in them were probably my favorite scenes in the movie.
I would have loved to have her in the movie a little bit more, where Brad Pitt keeps showing up and talking to her.
Yeah, in his Jamaican accent, he did what do they call it?
Yeah, I don't know about that either. Where it's kind of like,
I also could be all right, man. It's yeah. I'm like, dude, that came out of nowhere. Wow, Brad Pitt, the Jamaican accent. How about that?
I don't know if that was. I don't know. I didn't think it was called for, because it's the angel of death. He can talk however the hell he wants to, and you listen. Mm-hmm. And she spoke English. She just had a really thick accent.
I did think it was interesting that out of all the characters in the movie, she was the one that automatically knew that Joe Black was Death.
Yes. When when he went back to the hospital and she was lying in the bed, and she immediately knew who it was. Immediately.
And she was so sick and close to death, she was begging Joe Black
She was
to
begging him.
take her,
Yeah.
which was very emotional. She honestly, best acting performance in the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because I would have used her a little bit more of a humility type thing where she's begging him to die. You know what I mean? Like, so I would have had more scenes with her in it, and maybe less scenes with Bill talking to fucking the clouds or something. You know, a lot of that stuff was kind of like hokey as far as I was concerned. Because you can introduce Brad Pitt's character just bumping into him in a conversation where, like, look, I'm your best friend now. You know what I mean? As opposed to like listening to voices and all this other shit.
It was like we mentioned before, and we'll probably mention again in this review. It was way too long. I was watching. I'm like, slash this, cut this. I don't need a 10-minute love scene between Brad Pitt and the daughter. A little awkward. All the B plot, all the business stuff behind the scenes. Squash that down a lot. That movie could have been under 2 hours, and it would have been better.
Yeah. They could have. There was the first and second act were way too long. I thought the third act went pretty quickly once the story was established, where Bill got pushed out of the company, and they're trying to basically sell the company to the highest bidder so that they all get paid, and then Brad Pitt basically says that it's time, and he's like, well, I'm ready to go now. And he's like, no, we'll do it after your party. So like all that stuff I thought was good. It was just getting to that point took way too long.
Did you know that
the first and second act should have been a lot shorter?
They edited the movie for showing on television and airplanes, interestingly enough, which I didn't know was a thing. And they cut it down to 2 hours. There's a 2-hour cut of the movie. The director found out about it and disowned the 2-hour cut. So if you look at the director's credits on the 2-hour cut, it says Alan Smithy, which is the nom de plume of any.
I didn't notice that.
We watched
the longer version.
We watched
the 3 hours.
Right. I was like, I was watching the movie and I'm like, I've heard of movies having director's cuts. This should have like a viewer's cut where it's shorter. Go the other way. Because that whole plot between Anthony Hopkins' daughter's boyfriend trying to take over his business, that could have just been axed.
Yeah.
To me, I'm trying to think of a part of that I would leave in, and I can't really think of it.
And then then Brad Pitt's character is like, okay, are you ready? And then they go in the office, and then that son-in-law character comes in, and he's acting like he's the IRS agent. And I'm like,
no, that was weird.
That was fucking weird. That was so weird.
I think the turn that the movie took with it's not son-in-law yet. They were boyfriend, girlfriend.
They were engaged or something. Or she was wanting to get married to him or something like that.
So he was expected to be the person who was going to take over the business after Anthony Hopkins' character passed away. I mean, the idea was, okay, you're going to marry my daughter. You're a slick executive. Let's get you
he was
involved.
Like his right-hand man, basically.
Right. Yeah. And every action he took until about a half through the movie, I agreed with. I'm like, he's like, this is my future business that I'm going to use to support who I think is going to be my future wife. And my boss, Anthony Hopkins, got this weirdo sitting next to him, clearly in his ear, like Grima Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So he's like, why are we listening to this guy anymore? He's out of his mind. He was for selling the business yesterday. Now all of a sudden Brad Pitt shows up and now he's against it. So I was with him there, and I didn't like. I think they turned him into this nefarious guy halfway through the movie, and it was a hard right turn with his character.
Yeah, so where he turned into like the villain, and it's like,
I'm like, where did that come from? He's trying to protect the family business.
Because they could have had more conversations with Anthony Hopkins and that guy, his right hand man, conversating about the history of the company and what he's going to do when he dies, stuff like that. That never happened. It was basically, well, listen to me until I die.
Yeah, all that business subterfuge subplot could have gone.
Yeah,
to me,
because Anthony Hopkins' character already knew he was going to die. It's just when.
Plus, if you think the girl, Susan, the young girl who
Yeah.
was dating this guy, but clearly fell in love with Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
that's enough for that character. They could have written a little plot around the boyfriend being upset about this new guy, but you didn't need to include all this boardroom crap. It was too much. Too much.
Yeah, it was too much. And it was a little bit more, it was a little too cliche. You know what I mean? Like, I'm upset right now and I'm trying to sell the company and you won't let me do it. It's kind of like a
And like
very cliche and obvious what direction that they were going to go. And it's like, come on, I need a little bit of mystery. I need a little bit of something, you know?
I agree. I'm like 45 minutes into the movie. I'm like, I already know where this is all going. I could have written it without watching it. I know where it's going to go. And sure enough, it went there. The only thing is at the end, whether Death was going to take the girl with him, because in the original Death Takes a Holiday, he does.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. But yeah, we can definitely, we've exhausted the first two, the last act. I didn't hate the last act. I thought more of that should have happened. And a lot of the first and second act was cut down tremendously. Where I actually liked the conversation that the other daughter had about the party. And
the older
Anthony
daughter,
Hopkins, the older daughter, and Anthony Hopkins is like, well, why are you doing all this?
mm-hmm.
And she's like, because I love you, Dad. I want to show you how much we appreciate you. So I like the fact that Anthony Hopkins' character was sort of like, why are you making a big deal out of me? I'm just a guy.
See, I disagree with you there. I would have slashed that part too. I think the older daughter, there was no point in her either. Really. I mean, I get where they were going. She was looking for his attention and competing against her younger sister.
Susan always got his attention. So she was basically pushed in the back. So I didn't mind that. And then the conversation about the party, and the cake and all that other stuff. And then when they're the actual party, like when they're setting everything up and then he apologizes to the older daughter about not paying so much attention to her because of Susan and all this other stuff. I actually didn't mind that. I thought they should have
lashed it all.
Oh.
No, here's what you need. Here's in my head, and I'm gonna watch the original just to see what they did with it.
Okay.
I know it's shorter, so I'm interested to see what they cut out. You've already got an amazing premise, right? Girl meets a guy at a coffee shop, really attracted to him. He goes out and gets smashed by a car. Death says, you know what? I kind of want to live on Earth and see what humans are like. So he assumes his body. Hilarity ensues. Go with that. And then Death explores the world. You can get a lot of stuff out of that. Dealing with the father. I mean, I think there's just a lot of fat in the movie.
You even had a completely different movie if it did that. It'd have been Crocodile Dundee, where he's in New York City.
Okay, I got you, Derek. I hear what you're saying. I mean, there were some touching moments between fathers and daughters, which is why, actually, Derek, this is a chick flick. This is
it is a chick flick. But I like Anthony Hopkins. I like Brad Pitt. So it was like you've got two people that are pretty good. So it had a lot of promise to it. Like if it was no name actors or C-level actors, I wouldn't have picked that. But you have two people.
What did you think of Brad Pitt's performance?
I thought Brad Pitt got better and better as the movie went on.
Agreed.
At the beginning, it was shaky, but I think progressively he got better and better as it went on.
Yep.
And then one of my favorite scenes, and you may disagree, is when he tells Bill, Brad Pitt's character tells Bill that he's going to take Susan with him. And then he says, I forbid you to take her. I forbid you to do it. And he's like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then out of spite, Death walks out and talks to Susan and realizes it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And when Susan walks up and hugs him, she knows it's not right. Because the look on her face where she's like, this is not the person that I fell for. Because he was very cold, he's very distant. And then when she touched him, it was just like, She's kind of
See,
looking at him like a side eye, you know?
I think the mystery in Joe Black's character was part of why she was attracted to him.
The unknown.
Uh,
It was
correct.
exciting.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which again, that's another point that goes. Listen, it hit the chick flick trifecta. Right here we go. Daddy loves you in the end. Right.
Yeah.
Women like that. Brad fucking Pitt. There you go with him.
Yeah.
And a mysterious man, handsome, mysterious man. Ooh, who is he? Yeah, that's all the chick flick beats.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm surprised it didn't do. This movie cost $90 million to make and only made $48 million domestically.
It won awards too, didn't it? I'm pretty sure it won awards.
I think so. Worldwide, it was 143 million. And I, for the life of me, think that if this were a 2-hour movie, it would have made a ton of money.
I think so. Yeah. But you also have to understand that Brad Pitt came off of Fight Club. He came out off of other movies where guys were into Brad Pitt too. He did 7 before that movie.
He's like a Tom Cruise type. Like everybody likes Brad Pitt. He's great.
So the girls obviously like him, but the
Sure.
guys were into him with 7 and Fight Club and all that stuff, you know? So I think they were trying to maximize Brad Pitt during that time. And Anthony, like I said, Anthony Hopkins is a great actor.
No
award-winning actor.
No arguing there. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think his acting was fine. I think the material he was given was the problem.
Yeah, yeah. I think the material stuff was beneath him.
Yeah, if you're watching a movie with Anthony Hopkins in it and you don't like his performance, it ain't him. It's what they're giving him or how they're directing him, or it's something else, but it ain't him. He knows how to act. We know this.
Yeah. So going back to the third act, so they're prepping for this party. He's talking to both of his daughters separately about different things. Susan about Joe Black, the other daughter about the party and why you're making a big deal out of me and all this other stuff, and her not ever being put on. She was never put on a pedestal type thing. So there was a conversation about that, and then they actually have the party itself, and Bill is in the office most of the party. And then Brad Pitt has the interaction with Susan, and she realizes that he's not the same person that she thought he was. So she basically just goes away. And then Anthony Hopkins finally joins the party and does like a little speech that's about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a weird speech.
I thought so too.
I thought it should have been a little bit more deeper because he's literally going to die. So you would think that he would have had a little bit more emotion with his speech, which I think he had more emotion when they were dancing when he was dancing with Susan on there, knowing that it was his time. But that speech should have came like from every fiber of his being about, thank you for loving me and thank you for trusting me and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was too short, and it needed to be a lot more impactful, especially for somebody that's going to die. Because a lot of people have no idea when you're going to die. You know what I mean?
I thought his portrayal or how they directed him was a little too stoic for me.
Yeah.
He didn't seem bothered by it all. There wasn't one point in the film until maybe the point you're saying when he danced with his daughter, which even that's a bit of a stretch, where he seemed like anxious or worried about knowing he's going to die. He took it a little too much in stride.
Yeah, he should have been a little bit more emotional about it. But he did have that conversation with Brad Pitt where Brad Pitt was telling him that he's going to take Susan. And then Anthony Hopkins has said, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm okay with it.
I think
he was still too stoic. He was still like, it would be hard to keep your emotions in check knowing the day that you're going to die and that you're not going to see your family ever again. It's done for you.
They could have somehow, and I don't know, as not a movie maker myself, but I feel some of the scenes in the movie that I would have cut, they could have replaced one of those scenes with an Anthony Hopkins scene showing some vulnerability about his situation.
Yes.
Because he came off like an automaton through the whole movie.
Yeah, there was a lot of fluff when it's like you can flesh out Anthony Hopkins actually coming to the realization that he's not going to see his daughters anymore. You could have had that scene. You know what I mean?
Yep.
or a scene where he's talking to God, or a scene. You could have had anything. And you're right. He was a lot. He was like a trooper through the whole thing. And it's like I don't think people act like that.
No, especially listen, as I have daughters, right?
Yeah.
And I actually projected myself in his place.
Yeah.
And any scene with older fathers and their daughters kind of gets me, no matter what movie it's in, just, because.
You can relate.
Yeah, I wasn't gotten by this. And normally a movie where a father's going away and has a dance with his daughter, I'd maybe crying, because I'm a softie when it comes to this stuff. I'm like, I don't know. He doesn't look that worried about it. Why should I? He's fine.
Which is interesting because I don't think you, for how a great leader that he was and a great man he was, it was kind of like, what? He's awfully like, I'm okay with it. And now we're going to lie about the IRS. You know what I mean? Like,
right. There was another scene, Derek, that was actually, they tried to show a lot of emotion between the relationship he had with his younger daughter. And there was one scene where the younger daughter is sitting on the couch with him. I think it was after a dinner. I thought it was a little creepy. Like she was all up on him, rubbing her fingers up his tie and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a little weird.
Really?
I thought it was a little weird. It stuck out to me. I'm like
she was seducing him.
No. It wasn't quite that weird, but I was like, no, I've never seen a daughter of that age act like that around their father. It just seemed.
And it didn't stick out to me. I don't know if it didn't stick out to me. I don't know. So with the third act, he dances with his daughters. Brad Pitt all of a sudden just kind of stands off to the side, up on a hill.
Yeah.
And I did like the running joke about him with the peanut butter. That was actually pretty
cute.
funny.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of a cute thing that they did throughout the film, where he liked peanut butter for some reason. I mean, who doesn't like peanut butter?
Sure.
And then the waiter came out to him. Is like, sir, is everything okay? He's like, do you have any peanut butter? He's like, no, I think we're out of it. He's like, oh, that's okay. You know what I mean? And he's just kind of standing there. Okay. So then Anthony Hopkins is just kind of like a lost puppy in this party, and he's dancing with his daughter. And I think he should have said goodbye. He kind of like inadvertently said goodbye. And I think she deep down knew it was a goodbye, but he didn't actually say goodbye.
Well, the younger daughter definitely knew somehow.
Yeah, somehow she knew.
Not sure how she knew.
The only thing I can think of is when she held Brad Pitt and realized he wasn't the person that she thought he was, that she thought something was up. There's something going on.
The older daughter, nowhere to be seen. So I guess she doesn't love her dad as much as the younger daughter.
Yeah,
so
she didn't give a shit.
Screw her.
As long as the party was stunning and brave, she was good.
But you're right. I mean, there's one point where Brad Pitt's walking into the middle of this very crowded party, and he is a presence at the party.
Yeah.
Handsome, who's this guy? But then you're right. He just goes off to the side and stands there by himself for like 10 minutes. And nobody, well, the waiter went up and asked him if he wanted anything, but nobody else. None of the other guests, well, you all right, bud? Come on, it's a party. It was contrived. Actually contrived. This
and
movie
then when
is
Anthony
contrived out of 10.
Started going toward Brad Pitt, and I actually like that little banter that they did where he's like, is it gonna hurt? And he's like, no, it's not going to. And then they walked basically in the sunset or by that fountain, and then he basically was gone.
But
and then
Anthony Hopkins,
Susan basically was just like, where's my dad at? Like randomly, he's like, where is
somebody?
He? Oh my God, where is he? And she starts running like toward the fountain, like, oh my God, where's my dad? And then all of a sudden, Brad Pitt, the original Brad Pitt character, came out
from the cafe,
which I thought was a nice touch. That basically threw her a bone, and the person that she actually thought he was is there again.
But I saw that coming. It was
predictable, yes.
Super predictable. And to your point, so there's a party. There's probably 500 people at this party at least.
Yeah, it's a large party. It's a dinner party, large party.
Poor Anthony Hopkins, 65th birthday.
Yeah.
Gives a speech, dances with his daughter, and he just kind of goes like Joe Bidening out in the middle of the field,
He's
you would,
looking around.
yeah, you would think more people would have chased him or going, "Hey, you all right?" Or,
Yeah, is
"Hey,
everything good?
nope, nobody gave a fuck. Nobody cared." They're like,
It didn't
whatever.
seem like that. It seemed
No.
like they were there for the party and not for the actual guy.
And that to me is takes you out of the movie because they filmed it that way and directed it that way because they filmed it that way because that's what the script said. It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
At the guest of honor in his home with all his loved ones and his coworkers and close friends that he could just disappear. And it's not like he went in the house and said, "I got to take a leak. I'll be back in a minute." Like, he literally walking across the field in plain sight of everybody.
Yes, and a penguin outfit, all dapper.
Yeah, everybody's like, whatever. His oldest daughter's like, "Oh,
I'm here for the food. Fuck that guy."
right." But that
So
annoyed
yeah,
me.
so he takes him and he dies. He's gone.
Mhm.
But I think they should have completely did it a different way. Like I
Okay.
just thought it was just random that he was just I'll just walk you by this random fountain over here, and then it'll be over.
So you would have ended it where he walks Anthony Hopkins over the bridge, and that would have been it?
Something like that. Or it would have been an awkward moment where Bill was dancing with his daughter and Brad Pitt said it's
like tapped him on the shoulder, like, "Can I have this dance," kind of thing? And
yeah, it's
all right.
Even a head nod or something because it would have increased the moment that it's time. That way you get in, the daughter would have emotion like, "Oh my God, no." You know what I mean? Like there was nothing.
Yeah, that's I mentioned earlier I thought Anthony Hopkins was awful stoic through the whole thing.
Yeah.
They kind of all were in a way.
Yeah.
But nobody reacted in a way, whether it be you're at a dinner scene and this stranger walks up and he's acting like Forrest Gump out of nowhere.
It's almost like, well, we have to act like adults 24/7. It doesn't matter. You act like an adult. You know what I mean? It's like your dad is about to die. Give me a little bit of emotion. Give me something.
Do you think Brad Pitt should have told the girl that he was deaf?
No, because that would have ruined the whole reason. But I do like the fact that she knew when she hugged him. She knew there was something going on.
In the original movie, Death Takes a Holiday, she finds out.
Oh, she finds out?
Yeah, this is there. I always talk about how there's nothing new under the sun. Have you ever heard the Greek myth of Hades and Persephone?
Not really. I mean, I've heard the names, but
Hades falls in love with Hades is god of the underworld, right? He's, death and all that. Basically death in Greek mythology.
Okay.
He falls in love with a girl named Persephone who's in the overworld. So he kidnaps her. And she becomes his bride of the underworld. So that was kind of, I think that this borrowed a lot off of that. Little differences and stuff, but this reminded me of that, which is also one of the myths, Greek mythology, that is rewritten into young adult novels now that a lot of young girls like to read, which is, again, chick flick. So there you go. There's my
I like character-driven dramas, so we're gonna watch a lot of those.
Well, I don't know about that. We'll see. 3-hour ones.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you'd sent me a list as far as like a rating, how we're going to do this. So the first one on your list is plot. What do you give the plot out of 10?
The premise is a 10. It's a brilliant premise. So I would give at least the idea of the plot a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
I'll give it a 9 just because it's a remake. But yeah, I do like the premise of the movie, even though it was 3 hours long. It should have been 2 hours long. I think it'd have been a lot better of a movie if it was shorter.
I agree.
But yeah, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Attraction, premise, entertainment value.
I didn't find it terribly entertaining, to be honest. So
yeah, because it was 3 hours, it dragged a little bit. So it wasn't as to the point. So I think the entertainment value went down. So I'll give it a probably about a 5.
Yep. Yeah, it
'Cause
dragged.
it
I
wasn't very
agree.
entertaining.
It was too stretched out to be entertaining for 3 hours.
Yeah. And then you have theme, identity, or depth. It wasn't very
Mm,
deep because I think they should have went a lot more deeper into the relationships between the characters,
I
and they
agree.
didn't.
It was a mile wide premise with an inch deep of execution. There were lots of points you could the the understanding that he's about to die. That's a big plot point. Death wants to live as a human. That's an amazing plot point. The girls want their father's love. Great plot point. Lots of good plot points. Not really dove into to the
There
extent they
was
could have been
moments
because it was
where I liked.
stretched.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Moments, but throughout the entire movie, it failed. But I thought there was little moments that I picked on, like, okay, I actually like this scene. Oh, okay, I like this part, and I like how they handled this. But yeah, it was sort of like so few and far between. It was hard to completely, as a whole, say yes. They freaking nailed it. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 5.
All right. It's fair.
Acting, characters,
Hmm.
performances.
That's a tough one. 6, maybe. I thought Anthony Hopkins, like I mentioned, did the best at what he could with what he was given. Best that he could with what he was given. I agree with you that Brad Pitt got better as the movie went on. I'm not sure if that's because they filmed it in order or because I just got used to him being that character after a while,
Being
so it
retarded.
felt more comfortable.
He
The
basically
young
was Forrest
daughter
Gump for at first. Like, I
young
don't know
daughter
what to do.
yeah. The young daughter, Susan, I thought her job was to be pretty and thirsty, and she did a good job at that. The
I thought
older
she did a
daughter
really good job. Anthony
oh,
Hopkins, for the material that he was given, did a good job. I just thought it was below his standards. And then
and
Brad Pitt, it was rough at first, and then
it was
got
rough.
better as it went.
Yeah, so, yeah, 6, I'd
Yeah, I'll
say.
give it a 7
Yeah.
altogether.
Mhm.
Dialogue, storytelling, yeah, we've kind of beat that to death. I'll go to 5.
3.
3.
Mhm.
Yeah, they could have shrunk it down and been a lot better.
Mhm.
Cinematography, I actually thought it was a good looking film. I didn't catch too much as far as like mistakes or you see a boom operator in the background or anything like that. I didn't see any of that stuff. So cinematography, I'd probably give it a 9. It was a good looking film.
There was some good
Sexy
there was some good
cast, you know. Yeah.
yeah, there were some good shots. It was a lot of opulence everywhere. There was really no contrast to rich life.
Yeah.
That's fair, I guess. There was
Yeah.
one scene in particular that caught my eye. It was when the helicopter's coming into the party and they're showing how big the mansion is and all the setup for the party. I thought that was cool.
Setting the
I give
scene. Yeah.
yeah. But overall, other than a couple of scenes, nothing really caught my eye, good or bad. So I give 7.
Okay. Editing, I didn't see very many mistakes, so I'd probably just give it a 9.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean,
Soundtrack, there wasn't really a soundtrack.
well, I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna give that a 3, just because they
Okay.
tried to put humorous music in places that I think weren't appropriate, and I
It didn't
noticed
work
it.
for that particular moment.
Yeah. Now there were some soundtrack moments, like the last discussion between Joe Black and the girl. Not the last one, but the one where she's starting to realize he's not who she thinks he is. That was good.
Yeah.
Got a little emotion out of me. So 5 soundtrack
Which I think
side.
that I think they could have explored that a lot more
Mhm.
about him not being able to disclose who he is and her falling for him
Mhm.
and then having these hard difficult conversations about like look like
She could
I'm
have
not who,
overheard a conversation
yeah, I'm
between
not
her
who you
father
think I
and
am.
that would have
You
been
know what I mean?
interesting.
Like yeah. Directing 0 just because the guy got pissed that they shrunk his so he gets a
Yeah, I'd have
0.
been happy. He should have been happy that it was down to a normal length that people could
I'm sorry
digest.
if I'm the director of the movie, a 3-hour movie, dude.
I agree. It was yeah, it's I guess you have to
Have
blame
some
the director
balls and
for
think
3 hours.
3 hours.
I agree. 0. So,
That's producing and directing failed.
mhm.
And then it factor. I don't think there was any kind of it factor.
Brad Pitt. So I
Yeah,
give that a Brad Pitt out of 10 for the it factor.
yeah. The dreaminess of Brad Pitt.
I
That's
mean,
the it
yeah,
factor.
it's what brought people to the movie, probably, I would think.
Yeah, yeah. Because
That
I
and
mean, Anthony Hopkins is a fantastic actor, but the girls are going to see Brad Pitt.
here's a little trivia for you. Do you know what else brought people to the movie? It was one of the first movies to show the Phantom Menace trailer in America. And there were several reports that people would go to the movie, buy a ticket, watch the Star Wars trailer, and leave.
Really, I didn't know
Yep.
that.
hmm
Interesting.
So there's your it factor: Star Wars and Brad Pitt. Who knew?
Okay, so we've given kind of our numbers all together as the movie a whole. What do you give it out of 10?
6. Maybe I was annoyed for the first 45 minutes or so, but I kind of got into it a little bit more. It stopped being as annoying as I felt the first act was. So it got better.
Yeah, I would give it a
6.
7 because it got better as it went, but it was way too fucking long. Way too long. And I always say get to the fucking point. And that movie
Right.
did not get to the point quick enough.
Nope. And most critics agree with you and I because Rotten Tomatoes it's at 47%. And
Oh, is it really?
most of the complaints, well, the two main complaints was A, it's too damn long. And there were several critics who thought Brad Pitt was horrible, which I disagree.
I disagree. He was rough at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Well, I think
understand
you know what?
I understand why he's rough because he doesn't know anything, but that's because the plot point that they chose, he came off like a retard.
Yeah, and I think also it's the change in the first scene that Brad Pitt is in when he's being charming Brad Pitt at the cafe.
Yeah.
He nailed it. He was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But then they straitjacketed him with the death character, and it kind of forced him to act in a way that's odd to see Brad Pitt acting.
Yeah.
So it was like you said, it was a little uncomfortable until he got more comfortable with the role, which in the
Yeah.
end, I don't think he totally did, but he got better. Although the last scene where he's the guy from the cafe again, I was like, ah, there's Brad Pitt. That's great. It's good to see him back.
The
So
Brad Pitt that we know, charming.
yeah, I'm like, ah, there he is. Risen up the girl. Good for him.
Yeah. When I talk to you, you're like, yeah, I'm about an hour and a half left of him risen up a girl. I mean, yeah. So all in all, it could have been a better movie than it was. I think it had potential and it just failed. It failed the length and it failed with some scenes that just went nowhere and helped the plot out. It just stretched everything. So
It's really a
those are my
shame
final
because, like
thoughts.
we had said before, the premise is great
Yeah.
and there's good actors in it, and they just shit the bed with it. It's too stretched. Like you said, the director, I think, I don't know. Maybe he
But
didn't have an
and I
editor
don't
that he
blame the
trusted.
actors for that.
No.
I blame the producers and the director and the screenwriter. They're the ones that fucked it up with the 3 hours, the director not having balls and fucking having that shit like 2 hours, shooting everything, and then all of a sudden it's a 3-hour fucking movie. It's like, come on, dude. Did you even read the fucking script?
So we both agree that it probably would have been more successful at the box office if it were 2 hours.
Yes, probably. Get to the point. You got dreamy Brad Pitt, so the girls will love it. You
Yeah.
have the film nerds like myself who like Anthony Hopkins, and then the girl that the daughter, she was hot for the guys. So
Yeah, but she was
2
here's
hours it would have been good.
with chick flicks, you don't want the girl to be incredibly hot.
Yeah,
And she was perfect for that. Like she was pretty,
yeah,
but she wasn't like Scarlett Johansson rolling around there. Because
yeah,
I think a female audience with a shorter film and focusing on the romance plot a little bit, tighten that up,
yeah,
could have identified with the character. Like, oh, I could look like her. She's not completely crazy.
yeah.
Her daddy loves her. Oh, at the end, she really, he really loves his little girl. And I get to date Brad Pitt. How can you mess that up? How do you mess it
And
up? And they
the,
did.
the sex scene was awkward because he's sitting there
Oh,
fucking fishing,
oh.
like he's doing the skimming of the pool, and she goes out there and just wants to bone. It was
Bro,
kind of awkward.
and I did not want to see a close up of Brad Pitt's belly button. That was not on my list of things I needed to achieve before I die.
So that shit was awkward too, and they fucking just did it right next to the pool. It's okay, cool. It'd been awkward if Anthony Hopkins' character walked in on him. See, but that would have been something you could have added, where there was drama between fucking Pitt and an Anthony Hopkins character, where it's like Brad Pitt is a tourist and you're banging my daughter. Because Anthony Hopkins' character accused him of that, but he never actually saw them do anything but kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, but he knew what was up.
Yeah.
Saw the look in his daughter's eye.
She had the little ching.
He's like, oh, fuck Brad Pitt. God damn it.
God
what am I going to do with my daughter now? I'm surprised the oldest daughter didn't leave her husband for it. Had all these girls going for Brad Pitt.
Just swooning over Brad Pitt.
Yep.
But all right, cool. Thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoys these videos. We're going to definitely do more. And it's not always going to be a chick flick. I just thought Meet Joe Black would be like a good first one. Because like I said, it's got good actors in it. So it had potential to do something. But yeah.
Have we agreed on Moneyball? Moneyball for the next one?
Do you want to? I have to find out where it is because I don't know Moneyball.
Oh, all right. Okay. Whatever you dial up, I will watch.
Okay, and it won't be a chick flick. We'll pick something else.
Please don't, no chick flick.
All right, thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you Sunday.
All right.
All right, later.